Now for some somber news. David Lynch, the visionary director of Dune, Twin Peaks, and Blue Velvet, dies at 78. David Lynch is one of the most influential filmmakers of our time. He, for my money, helped me see what movies could be. I fell in love with movies at a young age. I loved everything from the classics, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, West Side Story, so many others. Discovered science fiction, always loved sci-fi. But David Lynch, all of his films are weird. They show you what's possible when you don't do what's expected, whether it's narratively speaking, visually speaking. He's a master, a genius. He's inspired so many people. I had the opportunity to interview him a couple times. One time I went to his house. I did. I went to his house. He owns two houses right next to each other. And this interview was in the late 90s when Lost Highway came out. And I talked to him about Return of the Jedi. I talked to him about his entire career. He brought me up in his art studio, and he had on a table, he had shellacked roadkill to a canvas. And what David Lynch does, and why so many people are praising him, is because he does something no other people could do. And here's what I'll say for my money, how he has been such an influence. And this book, which I highly recommend, it's called Catching the Big Fish. It's about where ideas come from. And David Lynch, I think, has captured, I love to dream. If you've ever woke up and had a weird dream, you kind of write it down, you forget it later. David Lynch captures on film the closest approximation to what a dream state is. And this book, Catching the Big Fish, is about ideas. I've also got this book about the making of Dune, which is phenomenal. Whatever you think of the 1984 Dune, I did not like it at the time. I've come to appreciate it, seeing the longer versions of it. It's called the David Lynch Files. It's about the making of Dune, which they shot in Mexico. I love David Lynch as a filmmaker. I can't praise him enough. I am wearing this right now because of Blue Ribbon. I had to say that. But do you have anything to say about David Lynch?
Yeah. I watched Blue Velvet last night. I haven't seen that one in a long time. And it just reminds me, there are just few filmmakers that you apply the adjective Lynchian, because he had a definite style of film. You watch a David Lynch film and you're watching a David Lynch film, and you just don't see people like that anymore. Recently talked to Jonathan Sanger about the movie Cabrini, and Jonathan Sanger is actually David Lynch's producing partner from back in the day, from the very beginning. And I remember I asked him about Mel Brooks, what it was like working with Mel Brooks, because the two of them, David Lynch and Jonathan Sanger, Mel Brooks produced The Elephant Man, and they talk about how the Mel Brooks, he financed Elephant Man, and they would show him footage, and he told me that Mel Brooks gave him the best opportunity in Hollywood, and it was, he looked at the footage and said, "Here, I'm going to give you notes, and it's up to you whether you want to do the notes, but I trust you guys to make the movie you want to make." And David Lynch, for the longest time, has always credited Mel Brooks for his film career, because he gave him the freedom to make the movies he wanted to make. And that's something I don't think you can do in Hollywood anymore. And there's not a lot of filmmakers like David Lynch anymore. Blue Velvet, it just delves into, I think, the darkness of people. And that's kind of groundbreaking when you.
It's always like, there's a shot in Blue Velvet that totally illustrates that. You see this idyllic suburban life. You see someone mowing the lawn. You see the fresh cut grass. You can practically smell it. You see the sprinkler going off. You see this idyllic suburban, and a guy falls over having a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
Then you see the camera descends into the grass where you see the crunching like insects. It's like, and the sound is like, it's like, why is it focusing on that? Here's David Lynch at the Big Boy. Bob's Big Boy in Burbank was where David Lynch would go as a young man and drink milkshakes and hamburgers. He was as much about Americana. He loved America, as much about Americana, but not looking at it, like looking at it and seeing the cracks beneath the surface, seeing the surreal nature of life. You know, this beautiful home, but underneath the surface is, you know, a disembodied ear with ants crawling in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's even Denis Villeneuve like did a reference to that in his Dune movie with Baron Harkonnen. I found my feed is all David Lynch now. It is all David Lynch. And it is God, and plus he put himself in. I'm just going to play clips because I love David Lynch.
Hello. I was wondering if I might trouble you with strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement. The name is Gordon Cole, and I couldn't help but notice you from the booth. And, well, seeing your beauty now, I feel as though my stomach is filled with a team of bumblebees.
He loved sexy women too. He loved attractive women. I mean,
this is a weird comment, but
Laura
I just
Palmer,
watching David Lynch movies right now makes me realize how bad Asteroid City was.
yeah. And speaking of Laura Palmer,
yeah,
I mean,
Lynchian is the term. People copy David Lynch.
I mean, the fact that he never won an Oscar is just sad. Here's something. This is an exchange. Why he tells stories the way he does.
How do you respond to the idea that, you know, it doesn't make sense, or, you know, people don't understand? Like, what do you think about that? And what would you say to other people who maybe like making things that other people don't think make sense?
I think I love ideas. I like a story that's got some concrete, you know, structure, but also holds abstractions. Life is filled with abstractions, and the way we make heads or tails of it is through intuition. And so people get used to a film that pretty much explains itself 100%, and they kind of turn off that, you know, beautiful thing of intuition when they're looking at a film that has some abstractions. And some people, on the other hand, love these abstractions, and it gives them room to dream. An abstraction, to me, is a thing that cinema can say. And it's so beautiful, for me anyway, to think about these pictures and sounds flowing along together in time in a sequence, making a thing that can only really be said in cinema. It's not words, it's not just music, it's a whole bunch of things coming together and making a thing that didn't exist before. And that's what I really love about it.
Thank you.
And then to answer your question a little further, It's up to the people then, to find their own, interpretation. It doesn't really matter what I think. It's all, every screening, no matter what, even all the frames of the film are exactly the same, but there's no two screenings that are exactly the same. It's the viewer and the picture and sound, and it makes a circle, and it just goes like that. And so you just feel it and think it. That's kind of intuition, emotion, and thinking together, and come up, make it have a sense to you.
David Lynch's existence, very existence and presence, is why AI is never going to take off. You can't do AI. You can't tell AI to make a David Lynch thing. I by the way, if you want to really get inspired, just watch David Lynch interviews. He is amazing.
Well, that clip right there.
Look, here it is. Look at this. His appearance in
The
Fabelmans, playing John Ford. Last line. Thank you. My pleasure. Look at that. That was just amazing. And I could sit here for another hour and show you stuff. By the way,
I know you can.
I know. Here, this is funny. Did you know that Martin Short played David Lynch? Watch this.
In the very beginning, there is neither a script nor a story, just fragments, images. I like the idea of a dark road, for I know that the darkness of the unknown is like a magnet, luring the innocent into a world of corruption.
Well,
that didn't look like parody at all.
no, but that comes from a place of love, to be clear. That's what that's about. So I got more for you. Here is David Lynch talking about Return of the Jedi. He was offered it by George Lucas. Now, I talk about it on filmthreat.com. Look up David Lynch. I did an interview with him. He spent almost 2 hours with David Lynch in his art studio. Talked to him for a cover story on Film Threat when it was a print magazine in the 90s. We stopped publishing in 97. But here he is talking about Return of the Jedi. I'll show a quick clip here.
Did you turn down George Lucas for directing Star Wars Return of the Jedi?
I was asked by George to come up to see him and talk to him about directing, which would be the third Star Wars. And I had next door to zero interest. But I always admired George. George is a guy that does what he loves, and I do what I love. The difference is what George loves makes hundreds of billions of dollars. So I thought I should go up and at least visit with him. And it was incredible. I had to go to this building in LA first and get a special credit card, and I had to get special keys, and a letter came and a map. And then I went into the airport and I flew up, and then they had a rental car all ready for me, and this keys, and everything was set, and I was to drive to this place. And I came into an office, and there was George. And he talked with me for a little bit, and then he said, I want to show you something. Now, right about in this time, I started getting a little bit of a headache. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So he took me upstairs, and he showed me these things called Wookiees. And now this headache is getting stronger. And he showed me many animals and different things. Then he took me for a ride in his Ferrari for a lunch. And George is kind of short, So his seat was way back, and he was almost laying down in the car. We were flying through this little town up in Northern California. We went to a restaurant. Not that I don't like salad, but that's all they had was salad. Then I got a really almost like a migraine headache, and I could hardly wait to get to home. And I even before I got home, I kind of crawled into a phone booth and phoned my agent. I said, "There's no way. I know no way I can do this." He said, David, calm down. You don't have to do this." And so George, bless his heart, I told him on the phone the next day that he should direct it. It's his film. He invented everything about it, but he doesn't really love directing. And so someone else did direct that film. But I called my lawyer and told him that I wasn't going to do it. And he said, "You just lost, I don't know how many millions of dollars, but it's okay."
That is an example of a filmmaker rejecting corporate filmmaking. That's an example of that.
Yeah.
It's
You wish more would do that.
By the way, I wrote a book years ago called The 50 Greatest Movies Never Made. And in that book, there's a chapter about an unmade David Lynch movie. There were a couple. There were a Ronnie Rocket. He was going to make, starring the little person from Twin Peaks. In addition, there's another movie that was going to star Steve Martin called One Saliva Bubble. And in my book, The 50 Greatest Movies Never Made, which you can find used, it's also on digital. It was put out by St. Martin's Press, one of the first digital movies or digital books that they released. And here is an interview, rare, with Steve Martin talking about this unmade David Lynch movie.
There is another film which you were supposed to appear in together. What is the great lost David Lynch film? One
Saliva Bubble.
Tell us about that.
Oh, well, that I don't know why you even, it was a David Lynch wrote this with a partner. I can't remember his name. Wrote a masterful script called One Saliva Bubble. This was like in the early 80s, 89, was it really? And wait, were you offered it?
Yes, we were going to do it together.
Oh, really? I didn't remember that.
Well, I don't know.
But anyway, it was a great script. Never got made.
Yeah.
And I dig it out every once in a while.
I do remember from the luncheons, we had two different luncheons. You were there. And I remember he was going out with Isabella Rossellini.
Ooh, yeah.
And I remember just sitting there saying, even the way she moves her hands are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
So, I mean, so much you can say about David Lynch. He is one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. I have a sort of unintentional shrine to David Lynch on my bookshelf. I have the books. I've got stuff from Dune. It's every movie of his is like an event. And who is like him today? There's no, like you said, with Wes Anderson,
Yeah.
it's
How
like
much
not,
less David Lynch?
I love this. This is someone from X put together. It's all the screenshots of directed by David Lynch. And you can tell the movie by the background. You can see Twin Peaks in there. And a quick recommend, episode 8 of season 1 of Twin Peaks. Watch that episode. That's when the things get weird. And also episode 8 of that season, the new Twin Peaks. Also, that is also a banger as well. And I'll end with this. I mean, because I could sit here all day. And show you stuff. End with a couple things here. This is a tribute from Kyle MacLachlan from Instagram. 42 years ago, for reasons beyond my comprehension, David Lynch plucked me out of obscurity to star in his first and last big budget movie. He clearly saw something in me that even I didn't recognize. I owe my entire career and life really to his vision. What I saw in him was an enigmatic and intuitive man with a creative ocean bursting forth inside of him. He was in touch with something the rest of us wish we could get to. Our friendship blossomed on Blue Velvet and then Twin Peaks, and I always found him to be the most authentically alive person I'd ever met. David was in tune with the universe and his imagination on a level that seemed to be the best version of human. He was not interested in answers because he understood that questions are the drive that make us who we are. They are our breath. While the world has lost a remarkable artist, I've lost a dear friend who imagined a future for me and allowed me to travel in worlds I could never have conceived on my own. I can see him now standing up to greet me in his backyard with a warm smile and a big hug and that Great Plains honk of a voice. We'd talk coffee, the joy of the unexpected, the beauty of the world, and laugh. His love for me and mine for him came out of the cosmic fate of two people who saw the best things about themselves in each other. I will miss him more than the limits of my language can tell and my heart can bear. My world is that much fuller because I knew him, and that much emptier now that he's gone. David, I remain forever changed and forever your Kale. Thank you for everything. That's from Kyle MacLachlan, his tribute to David Lynch. And I'll end with this. This is Bob's Big Boy in Burbank currently, where there are flowers. There are flowers right there as a tribute to David Lynch. There we go. Right there at the foot of Bob's Big Boy. Anyways, just it's I think we're gonna lose more legends like this, and I am.
And they're no replacements.
There's no one to replace. There's no who are the giants of tomorrow? I don't know.
Yeah, I can only think of three: Nolan, Wes Anderson, and probably Sean Baker. People who can make their movie. And I'll qualify people who can make their movie without studio notes.
But there'll never be another David Lynch.